we could have brought the animal in here.
We'll open it up for questions. Second row left, Ari.
Luke, I know that we were at Malik Harrison's announcement today, and I know that was your guy, and you.
Our guy.
Yeah.
He's part of the Ohio State University football program.
Were his recruiter.
I recruit that area, yes.
Yeah. What was it about him that made you feel like he was a fit? I know there were some comparisons of like what you did for Darren a few years ago and getting him an offer, and why did you feel the need to get him?
No, Malik deserved an offer, and I think the unique thing about him is I probably know more about him than I know about anybody else in this class. And sometimes, obviously, the guys they're closest here, and the guys in the state of Ohio you know more about. And that's a positive and a negative at times too, because there are there's different things that those guys that are locally, the different challenges for them. So he's a kid that, man, I mean, his ceiling is who knows where. And the reality is we bring him in here as an athlete. He could walk in tomorrow and try it wide out, try it tight end, try it defensive end, try it linebacker. What he is, he's an explosive athlete with some length and a really good character kid that we're going to, I think, really enjoy to have a part of this program.
There's somebody that, because based on area that you find, hey, this guy deserves an Ohio State offer, he needs to be here. How much leeway, how much trust does Urban have in you to say, hey, if Luke says we should take this guy or we should offer him? I mean, what's the process like in a situation like that?
I think that we trust all these guys. I mean, I'm sure Coach has obviously the longer he's known people, he'll their track record may, so to speak, but they wouldn't be here if he didn't trust them. And ultimately in recruiting, it does come down to a lot of that. If guys fighting for guys and what they truly believe and knowing what can be successful in this culture and in this environment. And he's one of those kids I believe can truly not just survive here, but thrive here in the culture and the environment that we have.
First row left, Doug.
Luke, with some of the defensive linemen in this class, whether it's Jonathan Cooper or Nick Bosa or Malik Barrow or whoever, we know you guys have some holes on the defensive line. How realistic is it for a true freshman to come in, that position, to come in and try to compete for realistic playing time at that position?
I think it's difficult at times. There's the biggest difference in the high school game to the college game has got to be in those big positions, whether it's a defensive lineman, whether it's an offensive lineman. The good thing about defensive line as opposed to offensive line, there's not nearly as much truly to learn, so it becomes more down to a little bit more of a battle. But guys that are physically developed, I would say, have the first and best chance to come in and be able to, compete at that level right away. And, obviously Nick Bosa would be one of those guys that you'd say physically coming in would have an opportunity to be able to challenge. Malik Barrow being a guy coming off of surgery as well. I'm not sure, physically whether he could, step in there tomorrow and battle with some of the guys. And then you'd say maybe a Jonathan Cooper. It's maybe a little bit easier on the edge where you might not be physically as dominant inside. But it is difficult. But again, we recruit those guys with the idea that we think that they can come in and give us an opportunity to compete and vie for some playing time, especially if we're going to play 8, 9, 10 guys up there.
And I know it seems like on signing day we talk about all these guys, and then guys redshirt, you sort of forget about them for a while. But specifically on that defensive line, just thinking about that group, some of the guys who did redshirt, we were talking about a year ago, whether it's Cornell or Alabi or whatever else. How ready are some of those guys, you think?
Well, some of those guys are coming off injuries, as you spoke with some of those. Those guys are coming off injuries, make it a little bit more difficult, which is why spring is so big. Guys like Jay Sean and some of those guys, even Draymond, who had the opportunity to compete a little bit more in bowl practice, are going to be a little bit more prepared. Bowl practice really is like another spring ball. I mean, we'll have as many practices in bowl as we do for all of spring. So it was great for them. It was a great opportunity for them. They won't be freshmen. They won't even be sophomores. We like to look at it as, they're basically in their second year. So we're looking for big things, from Jay Sean, from Draymond and a bunch of those guys, because it's going to be a little bit by committee until we can figure out really who we can count on.
Front row right here, Austin.
Luke, Urban just, when he was talking about Nick Bosa, said he might have been ahead of where Joey was as a freshman. A, that's probably exciting for you guys. B, maybe it could be a lot of pressure on him. How do you view it? What did you guys see for him coming in?
Well, again, we think we know. You're not obviously ever for sure on guys that are coming in as far as how ready and more so mentally of the things that they can handle. But the great thing you can say about probably Nick as well as Joey, is that they grew up around it. And I kind of refer back a little bit to a guy like James Laurinaitis, who obviously was not as highly recruited as those guys, but there was a few things about James, just that confidence level, and I try to attest it to him growing up in that environment. That obviously his dad was a big-time wrestler, and in that environment of competition and always in them stressful and tough environments. And I really, to look at it, the Bosa family, Joey with his dad playing, he had big shoes to fill and obviously high expectations. So I don't know that it's going to be anything different for Nick. Nick is a mature kid that I don't think will bat an eye at, coming in, and whether he wears the number 97, whether he looks like Joey, whether he walks like Joey. The reality is he's Nick. He's grown up with it his whole life. He went to St. Thomas Aquinas, followed his brother, and had a very successful career. So I don't think anything on the mental side or the pressure side would be my guess would affect him.
You left out the shrug. I mean, I guess probably.
Well, maybe he'll come up with something of his own, but Zeke kind of stole that once Joey left that game. So Zeke kind of stole it, so maybe it's now Zeke's thing.
Second row middle, Tim.
Luke, Urban was just in here talking about Keandre and kind of thinks he's going to be a high-impact guy as his position coach now. What did you guys like about him? And then also, I assume that it probably wasn't a coincidence that he committed on the same day as two other guys in this class.
I mean, those things kind of all come together, and like we say, if you build it, they will come. But the reality is, I mean, he was a guy that we had targeted probably after his junior year. That on film was a guy that was very dynamic, and I guess maybe you'd say the Sam Backer position, the prototype of what we're looking for. You could kind of bottle up Darren Lee and say, hey, this is a hybrid type of guy. We really want an athletic guy that can blitz, that can cover space out there. And from all the recruiting and watching all the film going into even before his senior year, at the end of his junior year, he was probably the one guy that we had targeted to say, wow, that guy fits exactly the mold of what we want. We didn't have that opportunity to start with. Maybe he was, committed to the local school and this, that, and the other thing, and how things happen and go. But the reality is, when we had an opportunity, when things started to come open, when all of a sudden Darren Lee was going to leave and did leave, it opened up an opportunity for us. And we took that opportunity, knew what we wanted, and we're just fortunate enough that we had the good fortunes, obviously, to put a lot of things together to get maybe one of his good buddies and do a great job at landing a great football player.
Second row middle, Ryan.
The last year's signing day was about a month after the title, so this was the first recruiting class where y'all had a full year as defending champions. Did you notice that it was any easier because of that for y'all to get into some doors, or recruits were more receptive, or kind of put
that block O opens all the doors you need? I mean, I know that obviously the national championship and those things, but the reality is that block O and the history and what it has done, and not just over a short period of time, but a long period of time. In my 14 years of recruiting, 20 years I say of being here. It's always going to open the doors for you. The job that Coach does and the way he motivates us and obviously the emphasis he puts on recruiting and him doing it himself is what really sells. But the opportunity, whether we won a national title, whether we were 12-1, whether we were 12-0 for the years before that, the reality is that block O, that Ohio State opens the doors for us. Now it really takes great guys to be able to go in there and get the job done.
And final question from Tim here.
I want to follow up on what Tim just asked you a minute ago. Did you have a vision of a Darren Lee type player before Darren Lee became that guy, or did he
Yes.
Did he become that guy?
Well, no. I mean, really, we did. I can go all the way back to the Orange Bowl, to be honest with you. And for probably that year and the 8 years prior to that, we had played about 70% nickel defense, 75% nickel defense. We call ourselves a 4-3, but in reality, we'd play a 4-2-5 75% of the time. And after that game, specifically knowing all the lateral plays and handing the ball to Sammy Watkins and blocking a little nickel back out there on the edge and the ball running over the edge laterally, we kind of sat down and said, no, we're not going to have that again. Now, obviously, there's some things that are give and take with having a nickel guy out there as opposed to a linebacker, and we said this is what we need, and this is the route that we're going to go. Now, were we fortunate? Did we know exactly what we had in Darren Lee? No. I mean, we didn't have a crystal ball, but he was the type of guy we were looking for, a guy that you could say, well, what is he? Is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? Is he this? Is he that? No, but he's athletic enough to play in space. We know darn well we're going to put him out there and we're going to eliminate all lateral plays, all bubbles, and all things that are going to make sure they're going to try to force the field make us cover 53 and a third. The reality is, with having that guy out there, the piece that we're looking for, that we're going to try to shrink that field and have to play 1/3 of the field.
I'm gonna follow that one in on that last question.
That's always the last question. Go ahead.
But who else on this group right now, of linebackers you've got, fits that mold in your mind?
Well, we walk out there tomorrow, and Chris Worley is going to be that guy. But that goes without saying. We're going to find a way to get our best 11 guys out there. You're going to see Jerome Baker have an opportunity to go out there, and you're going to see guys that are going to come in, and Keandre Jones are going to have an opportunity to go out there. But we're going to move them around. We're going to find the guys that give us the best opportunity to be able to do those things. And all you got to do is look back to the one play. I think Darren went out one play of the Illinois game. Took a shot in the chest, and the very next play they come out and they throw the bubble out there to the field because we put a new true freshman out there, and they were going to come challenge that thing right away. So believe me, we bring that up often to whoever is going to be able to fill that spot.
And listen, like Urban said, he wants to play 18.
That's the third of the last. Good.
Exactly. He said he wants to get maybe 18 of these guys, of the 25 from this group, on the field next year and stuff. Do you feel that urgency, but also do you see the opportunities that these guys need to fill?
Well, I think, yes. I think we got to have that vision, because you look at a guy like Darren Lee, and here's a guy that leaves after 3 years, and for 1 year he sat himself on the bench. You could go back to Sean Springs. I mean, Sean Springs was the guy who redshirted, then leaves with another year of eligibility. I mean, Anthony Gonzalez was the same. I mean, there's so many of those guys that are those type of athletes that, you know what you got to do. You got to discipline yourself to go ahead and put them out there. And that's the most difficult thing, because we play at such a high level. There's no ground for somebody to say, okay, well, he's not quite good enough, so let's put him on this special team or this, or he's just growing. No. We expect him to be grown men, act like grown men, play like grown men, and for us, we got to discipline ourselves to be able to put them out there and give them an opportunity to prove it.
Luke, thank you.